In late May of 2005, what was supposed to be a joyful celebration turned into a harrowing mystery. Natalee Holloway, an 18-year-old honors student from an affluent suburb of Birmingham, Alabama, boarded a private flight to Aruba with 124 classmates and 7 chaperones. It was a long-standing graduation tradition, 5 days in paradise before heading off to college. For Natalee, it was a brief escape before starting her pre-med program at the University of Alabama on a full scholarship, but she would never make it to her first lecture. Before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. The trip started with excitement and high spirits. The group checked into a Holiday Inn near Aruba's bustling nightlife. Witnesses described nights filled with partying, drinking, and carefree behavior that prompted hotel staff to warn they wouldn't be welcome the following year. Among those students was Natalee, who, according to classmates, drank heavily on some nights, so much so that she missed breakfast more than once. Her mother insisted she wasn't a heavy drinker. Naive, maybe, but not reckless. On the night of May 29, 2005, Natalee's carefree celebration took a tragic turn. That evening, she was seen at a casino near the hotel, later heading to a popular local bar and grill called Carlos and Charlie's. Surveillance footage and eyewitness accounts showed her in the company of a young local man. Around midnight, she left with him. That was the last time anyone ever saw her. The next morning, her friends realized she hadn't returned. Her passport and luggage remained untouched in her hotel room, as though she had every intention of making her flight home. Panic set in quickly. By the time her mother, Beth Twitty, landed in Aruba that same evening on a private plane, Natalee had officially vanished. Beth's search began at the hotel, questioning staff and fellow students. Her investigation soon pointed to the young man last seen with Natalee, Joran van der Sloot, an 18-year-old Dutch national living in Aruba. He had been at both the casino and the bar. Beth managed to track down his address and, with the help of local friends, alerted the Aruban authorities. But what should have been a full-scale investigation was hindered by legal delays. Natalee hadn't been missing long enough to officially open a case. The local police were slow to act, assuming she'd show up eventually. When they finally questioned Joran, his story kept changing. At first, he denied even knowing her. Then, he admitted to spending the evening with her, dancing, drinking, then getting into a car with him and his 2 friends, Deepak and Satish Kalpo. Joran claimed they dropped Natalee off at her hotel and saw a man in a security uniform approach her as they drove away. But later, he shifted his story again. This time, he said they never reached the hotel. Instead, they went to a lighthouse, and eventually, Joran and Natalee were alone on a beach. He insisted she was extremely intoxicated and eventually passed out. He left her there, alone, and claimed never to have seen her again. The story made little sense, and the inconsistencies raised red flags. Search efforts began almost immediately. Volunteers scoured the coastlines, beaches, and surrounding areas. Dutch Marines joined the search. Even government employees were given time off to help. But despite the scale of the operation, not a single piece of physical evidence was found. No trace of Natalee, not a hair, not a shoe, nothing. As pressure mounted, the authorities arrested Joran and the Kalpo brothers 10 days after her disappearance. But with no body, no crime scene, and 3 suspects who all shifted their stories but denied wrongdoing, the investigation struggled to move forward. The media frenzy exploded. Natalee's case made headlines around the world, and Joran, charismatic, cocky, and strangely unfazed, seemed to thrive in the spotlight. His interviews were bizarre and contradictory. Each version of his story only made things murkier. Yet despite all suspicion pointing in his direction, he was released. So were the Kalpo brothers. False leads began to pour in. A body spotted in a landfill, a barrel found floating offshore, a piece of duct tape with hair. None of them led anywhere. Natalee's family was heartbroken. The public was outraged. But still, there was no resolution. Then came a shocking twist. A secretly recorded tape aired on national television appeared to show one of the Calpo brothers admitting to sleeping with Natalee the night she vanished while she was under the influence. But the tape's authenticity was soon questioned. Some believed it had been edited to incriminate him. The Aruban authorities released the original, unedited version, but confusion reigned. Beth Twitty publicly accused the suspects of being involved, going so far as to denounce the Aruban justice system. Later, she issued an apology, but her desperation was understandable. Her daughter had been missing for months, and all she had were lies, dead ends, and a growing sense that justice might never come. As Natalee's case faded from headlines, Joran remained in the public eye, feeding on the attention. He gave sensational interviews, claiming at one point to have sold Natalee into sexual slavery. He later retracted the statement, saying he made it up. Again and again, he twisted the narrative. Each time, it made headlines. Each time, nothing changed. Years passed, but Natalee never returned. Her case went unsolved, her body never found, and her story lingered as one of the most haunting unsolved disappearances of the 21st century. As the years rolled on, Natalee Holloway's disappearance continued to haunt the world, yet no one had been held accountable. No physical evidence had been found, and the main suspect, Joran van der Sloot, was still a free man. His actions, however, revealed a disturbing pattern. After being released, Joran leaned into the fame that the case had brought him. He participated in interviews, floated bizarre theories, and made wild claims, then retracted them. One of the most disturbing came in 2008 when he stated that he had sold Natalee to human traffickers. He described handing her off to a man on a beach, watching her board a boat, and never seeing her again. But this confession, like others, was short-lived. Days later, Joran said he made it up to impress someone. That someone was actually undercover Dutch reporter Patrick van der Eem. He had befriended Joran under the pretense of being a drug dealer, gaining his trust while secretly recording everything. In a series of hidden camera recordings aired on Dutch television, Joran gave a chilling new account. He described Natalee as extremely intoxicated, mentioned alcohol shots, and claimed she passed out on the beach. He said that instead of calling for help, he contacted a friend who helped him dispose of her body at sea. The friend, identified as Dory, denied any involvement. As with every other confession, Joran later claimed he lied. Despite the footage and the outrage that followed, authorities in Aruba still refused to rearrest him, stating the recordings were not enough to constitute new evidence. Public frustration surged once more. The feeling was familiar, hope, followed by disappointment. But the story wasn't over. In 2010, thousands of miles from Aruba, in Lima, Peru, Joran van der Sloot was again in the spotlight, this time for a far more concrete crime. On May 30th, exactly 5 years to the day after Natalee disappeared, 21-year-old Stephanie Flores was found dead in a hotel room registered under Joran's name. Surveillance footage confirmed that Joran and Stephanie had entered the room together. Hours later, he walked out, alone. Stephanie had been beaten to death. Within days, Joran was arrested trying to flee the country. This time, there would be no escaping justice. Joran confessed to the murder. He claimed that Stephanie had found information about the Natalee case on his laptop and became emotional, provoking him to attack her. His excuses were empty. Peru charged him with qualified murder and robbery. He was sentenced to 28 years in prison, later transferred to a maximum security facility. The world watched, stunned. After years of eluding responsibility in Natalee's case, Joran's violent nature had finally caught up with him. Meanwhile, in Alabama, Natalee's family remained trapped in limbo. Without a body or conclusive evidence, the case remained open but cold. In 2012, 7 years after her disappearance, Natalee Holloway was officially declared dead by a probate judge. Still, the theories never stopped. Many believe that Joran and the Calpo brothers may have drugged Natalee at Carlos and Charlie's, making her more vulnerable. The theory suggests she may have accidentally overdosed or become unresponsive, and in a panic, the trio disposed of her body. Ocean currents and lack of forensic evidence only deepened the mystery. If her body was cast far enough into the Caribbean Sea, it may never return. Others point to a cover-up by Aruban authorities, whether out of incompetence or a desire to protect their island's image. Critics highlight the slow police response, the delays in accessing surveillance footage, and the repeated release of suspects. A website even emerged at the time, calling for a boycott of Aruba and accusing officials of corruption. Another suspect, a party boat DJ known as DJ Diablo, had access to a boat on the night of the disappearance and was briefly arrested before being released due to lack of evidence. His false statements raised suspicions, but again, no proof emerged. Even the FBI struggled to pin down anything concrete. Joran's lies, the shifting statements from witnesses, and a complete lack of physical evidence made this one of the most frustrating cases in recent history. Yet Joran couldn't stay silent. Each time public interest began to fade, he reappeared with a new version of events. Each confession, real or fake, kept his name in headlines. And every time he changed his story, the chances of finding the truth became slimmer. In a final twist, Joran was later accused of attempting to extort Natalee's family, promising to reveal the location of her body for $250,000. The FBI caught him in the act, and he was charged with wire fraud and extortion in the United States. But because he was already serving time in Peru, the American case had to wait. Years later, in 2023, the Peruvian government agreed to temporarily extradite Joran to face trial in the U.S. In a shocking moment that shook both countries, Joran finally pleaded guilty to the extortion charges, yet still offered no real answers about Natalee's fate. Through all the lies, distractions, and manipulations, one fact remains. Natalee Holloway disappeared under suspicious circumstances, and the person who likely knows what really happened has spent 2 decades playing a sinister game of cat and mouse. Despite it all, her story continues to echo across the world, not just because of the mystery, but because of the failure of justice. Natalee's case reminds us that evil doesn't always come with a mask. Sometimes it wears a charming smile, tells 1,000 lies, and walks free for far too long. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to subscribe for more real-life mysteries and cases that deserve to be heard. Justice may be delayed, but the truth must never be forgotten.